All right, let's talk about something we hear all the time, body fat percentage. You see the numbers, you hear the term, but what does it actually look like? I mean, on a real human being. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a trip, a visual journey, really, from one end of the scale to the other to figure out what these numbers really mean for how we look, how we feel, and, our overall health. But before we get into the weeds, let me throw a little puzzle your way. Picture this. Two guys, both have exactly 33% body fat. You'd think they'd look pretty much the same, right? Well, what if they didn't? What if one of them looked way more fit than the other? And no, this isn't some kind of trick question. It gets right to the core of why this whole topic is way, way more complicated than just a single number on a scale. And here it is, the big reveal. The secret sauce? It's lean muscle mass. The guy with 150 pounds of lean mass, the one who probably hits the gym, is carrying that 33% fat on a much bigger, much denser frame. So he just looks more toned, and he probably feels a lot better too. This is the key takeaway, right? That percentage is only half the story. What's going on underneath all that fat is what really counts. Okay, so now that we've got that really important idea in our heads, let's lay down some groundwork before we start our little tour down the body fat scale. So, what is body fat percentage really? Well, in the simplest terms, it's just the total weight of your fat divided by your total body weight. And yeah, it's definitely a key health indicator, for sure, but like we just saw, it doesn't tell the whole story. It leaves out some super important details like where you're storing that fat, and the big one, how much muscle you've got powering your body underneath it all. All right, let's start our journey. We're going to begin at the very, very top of the scale. I think it's important to understand what the upper extremes actually look like and what that means for just, living day to day. So, 50%. At 50% body fat, we are talking about morbid obesity for both men and women. At this point, any muscle definition is completely hidden, and just getting around becomes exhausting. Seriously, simple things we take for granted, walking, even just sleeping comfortably or climbing a single flight of stairs, can feel like a monumental task. And this quote, man, this really hits home. It takes all that data and makes it real. I'm always tired. I'm just always fatigued. That says everything, doesn't it? This isn't about looks. It's about a deep, relentless exhaustion that just hangs over every single part of your day. Okay, let's drop down to 40%. This is where we start seeing some really interesting differences between men and women. For men, 40% is still in the morbidly obese category. That fat tends to gather around the stomach, which, raises the risk for stuff like heart disease and diabetes. Big time. But for women, they actually drop into the obese category. The health risks are still there, for sure, but because women tend to store fat differently, often more in the hips and thighs, the immediate danger level is a bit lower. All right, enough with the extremes for a moment. Let's move into the average zone. This is where, statistically speaking, most people in the US are actually living. And wow, this chart really lays out a pretty startling fact. The average American woman, she's sitting at about 39% body fat. That puts her right in the obese category. And the average man is around 27%, which, and this is key, depending on his age, can also be considered obese. But wait, here comes the plot twist. Age completely changes the rules of the game. That 27% that gets a guy in his 20s labeled obese, well, once he's over 50, that same number is considered acceptable. So what gives? It's because as we age, having a little extra body fat is actually protective. It acts like an energy reserve if you get sick, helping your immune system fight. So yeah, a little bit of extra padding is actually a good thing. Okay, let's keep moving down the scale. Now we're getting into the athletic range, the percentages we usually connect with fitness and peak performance. And this is where things get really fascinating, because we're going to see just how huge a role genetics play and why some of our go-to health metrics are, frankly, pretty flawed. Just look at this chart for a second. Only 2%. Let that sink in. Just 2% of women in the entire US have a body fat percentage under 25%. That is an incredibly tiny group of people. It just goes to show you how rare this level of leanness actually is. Heck, even most pro-female athletes, unless you're talking about maybe elite gymnasts or marathoners, they tend to hang out right around that 20% mark. And this leads us right into one of the biggest problems with how we think about health. Your genetics, your ethnicity, they have a massive impact on your body composition. And that is exactly why the body mass index, BMI, is just not a reliable tool for everyone. It's not one size fits all.
You can have two people with the exact same body fat percentage, but their BMIs could be totally different.
And this table just proves it. It's fascinating. Researchers found that if you match people for the exact same body fat percentage, Black Americans on average have a BMI that's 1.3 points lower than Caucasians. And for Polynesians, it's a whole 4.5 points lower. This is hard evidence of real, fundamental genetic differences in how we're built and where our bodies decide to store fat. It's a perfect example of why our health metrics absolutely have to take diversity into account. So, we've established that leaner isn't always better, especially when we're talking about flawed tools like BMI. But is there a point where getting leaner becomes actually truly unhealthy? The answer is a big, resounding yes. So let's talk about that. Let's explore that tipping point where fit crosses over into a really dangerous zone. Let's look at 15% body fat. Here, the paths for men and women just split dramatically. For a lot of guys, hitting 15% is a tough but achievable goal. Consistent training, a solid diet, and you can get there. But for women, this is where the body starts to sound the alarms. It's a potentially dangerous place to be. We're talking serious hormonal disruption, things like losing your period, which can then lead to a drop in bone density. It's no joke. When your body gets this lean, it basically pulls the emergency brake. And the warning signs are intense. We're not talking about just being a little hungry. We're talking about being plagued by constant obsessive thoughts about food. You get hit with brutal brain fog. Your hormones just shut down. Your sex drive? Gone. Sleep? Forget about it. You might even start losing your hair. This is your body screaming that it's in survival mode. So why does the body freak out like this? Well, it's because of something called essential fat. And the name says it all. It's essential. This isn't the stuff you're trying to burn off at the gym. This is the absolute bare minimum amount of fat your body needs just to function. It protects your organs, it regulates your hormones, and for women, that non-negotiable baseline is around 10 to 12%. Going anywhere near that, let alone below it, isn't just a bad idea. It's literally life-threatening. So let's break down exactly what's going on inside your body when this happens. It's like a 4-alarm fire. Step 1. Your body senses this super low fat level and immediately thinks we're starving. Step 2, it starts making cuts. It shuts down anything it decides is non-essential for immediate survival. And guess what's first on the chopping block? Reproduction. That's why your period stops and sex drive tanks. Step 3, your brain gets hijacked. It becomes obsessed with one single mission: find food. And step 4, if things get really dire, your body will start cannibalizing its own muscle just to get some energy. Okay, wow. So after that intense journey from one extreme to the other, let's talk about the big question. Where should most of us actually be aiming to land? Let's pull all this information together and figure out how to find that healthy, sustainable, sweet spot. So here are the numbers you're probably looking for. The American College of Sports Medicine lays out some pretty clear healthy ranges. For women, they recommend somewhere between 20 and 32%. And for men, the target is between 10 and 22%. Honestly, for most of us, just living somewhere inside those goalposts is a fantastic target for feeling good and staying healthy long term. But I really want you to remember the biggest lesson from all of this. There is no single magic number. Your ideal range is going to depend on so many things: your age, your genetics, what your goals are. At the end of the day, this whole thing isn't really about how you look in the mirror. It's about finding that spot where your body feels strong, energized, and just works its best. Because really, body fat percentage is just one number. It's just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. Real health is about so much more, right? It's about feeling strong, having energy, thinking clearly, being happy. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What does being healthy really mean to you?